All right, so obviously the Australian Spring Carnival is around the corner. We're getting to the end of winter. It's starting to warm up, maybe a little bit. But I thought today I'm going to talk about some of my predictions for the Spring Carnival. Some of them are kind of like long range predictions. Others are pretty obvious. um, but yeah, no, I want to talk about some of these horses. Some of these races that I'll target. But also, I noticed with this presentation that I've set up, there's a bit of a theme towards Chris Waller horses, which I kind of noticed is a bit of a coincidence, but nevertheless, I'll get into this predictions video. Carnival Rising wins the Everest. This is the hottest take of the lot of them, I think. I think Carnival Rising wins the Everest. All right, now we're getting serious. Aliana wins the Melbourne Cup, and we get very elegant flashbacks. Now, what a horse she's been, obviously. Owned by Star Thoroughbreds, trained by Chris Waller. She's always been bubbling under the surface, this horse, for the last year or so. Obviously, in the spring, she didn't really fire that much. We kind of thought that maybe she's not really a spring horse because the autumn before she won the Australian Derby and looked like an absolute superstar that autumn. And then obviously this past autumn as a 4-year-old, she won the Ranvet Stakes and the Tancred Stakes in a week, in the 1 week back up. And obviously in that second race, the Tancred beat an absolute international star in Dubai Honor, who normally farms Group 1s here. And he looked home in that race as well, but it was an amazing ride from James McDonald to run down Dubai Honor. And I think she could be a real star this spring. Same sort of profile is very elegant, like kind of a really elite horse, but hadn't won like a Melbourne Cup or a Caulfield Cup. Obviously very elegant. I think she won the Caulfield Cup a few years before she won the Melbourne Cup. So yeah, I think this is her year. I think last year they were a bit torn with her to go for a Cox Plate, obviously, because that's the absolute weight for age race in Australia, over 2,000 metres. I think they were a little bit torn. I think they should have maybe gone for a Caulfield Cup or a Melbourne Cup, but obviously they chose the Cox Plate and other races. But I think this year they have to go for a Melbourne Cup. I think she's going to be such a hard horse to beat. Obviously there'll be some interesting horses from overseas come over for the Melbourne Cup and the Caulfield Cup for that matter. But I just think she's one of the best horses in Australia, and we haven't really gotten a chance to see her in one of these like massive races. So I think she's like $13 or $14 or something for the Melbourne Cup. So could be a good bet. But she's definitely one of the horses to watch this spring, without a doubt. But we'll move on to the next one. Guesthouse puts Carnival Rising to the sword and then pisses up in the Cornwall. I don't know. I think this horse is really, really good. Obviously, he won a Golden Slipper. But being by Home Affairs, he's obviously going to stay at these sprinting distances. Although I think he's favourite for the Golden Rose, which I can't really understand. I thought, they might go for maybe like a Roman Console or a Danehill Stakes. Like, just keep him at 6 furlongs, maybe 5 furlongs. But, this horse, he won the Golden Slipper really well. He arguably should have won the Blue Diamond, but it was a bit of a, it was an okay ride. It was, he just didn't have the luck on the day, I guess. So, obviously, wins the Golden Slipper. Being by Home Affairs, who won the Cornwall Stud in very emphatic fashion, I think, he could be a real force in that race. I think he's like $5, which makes sense. But I think they're going to go for the Everest as well with this horse, just because he's owned by Cornwall now. And I feel like running seconds Carnival Rising is a really good thing for a horse's like stallion brochure, if that makes sense. I remember John O'Shea said about Hartnell that, even though he was running second to Winks, that was some of the most elite form in the world because Winks was such a superstar. So, I could see Guesthouse running in the Everest, and, they're not too worried whether they beat him or not because, they're running, within a few lengths of Carnival Rising. So, I think he'll go there. As I said before, I hope they just stick with like 1,200 metres, 1,000 metres going into the Everest. And then they'll go to a Cornwall Stud and win very easily at a very short price, I'd imagine, because, I think there's a lot to suggest this horse is the best sprinting 3-year-old this spring, I'd say. Obviously, we haven't seen them yet, but he won the Golden Slipper, should have won a Blue Diamond, and being by Home Affairs. Like, there's a lot of boxes that have ticks in them for this horse. So, I think he runs a good race in the Everest, a very gallant race, and then pisses up. in the Coolmore stud, I reckon. And then they'll probably go to Royal Ascot or something next year. You never know. Maybe a TJ Smith, those sorts of races. But we'll go to my next one, and this is probably like the most long shot chance of happening. Barnavara wins the Cox Plate. Oh god, probably not happening, but I just have a bit of a soft spot for this horse. I was there at Longchamp on Arc Day last year, and I had a bet on this horse in the Opera, and she won. Obviously, more of a soft track sort of horse, so I thought, she could be very effective there. Obviously, in France at those race days, it's basically soft all the time. Obviously, in the summer, it's you get a good track, but she's a bit of a soft track sort of horse. But she came out here. Obviously, Yulong by this horse goes to Chris Waller. Has a very similar profile to Via Sistina, who had tremendous success here, won like 10 or 11 Group 1s. But, she didn't really fire in her first few starts. I think she might have had one or two. But she just, her European form of old didn't really translate here. But with these imports sometimes, you just got to give them a bit of time. I think, when they come straight off the plane, because, she was running in October last year in Longchamp and then had her first run in, I think it was in March. So that's not like, it's 5 months, but it's a long way to go. Like the horse is literally going on a, 24-hour flight to get here. And then you got the layovers and stuff. So they're traveling for probably 2 days. And then they get here, Southern Hemisphere, the weather's different. It's definitely hotter than it is in Ireland, which is, where she was trained beforehand. And I think you need to give that adjustment time. You got to give them a bit of time when they come over here. Because obviously, some horses go well straight away, like Via Sistina. Although she was an absolute, she came second in a champion stakes before she came out to Australia. But, this is a different horse. I think same level of class, but different horse. And I think, she's had the winter to sort of, settle down here. And, I could see her being a real revelation this spring. She's not that old. I think she's like 5 or 6, which, in Australia isn't that old because you've got horses like Mr. Brightside and Via Sistina for that matter, who won a Cox Plate at the age of 8. So there's plenty of time for this horse. I think she's had her time here to, get her bearings a little bit. And I think she'll be a real revelation this spring, this horse. And also the fact that Autumn Glow's going to the King Charles probably and maybe an Empire Rose means that there's no clear Waller horse going to the Cox Plate. It could be Autumn Boy. It could very well be him. But that leaves an option for Barnavara, who obviously owned by Yulong, who are, one of the more important owners in Australia. I think, Barnavara could definitely be a chance for the Cox Plate if she's, going well in these lead-up races the Turnbull, that other race. I think it's the Caulfield Stakes. I think it might have a new name, but I think Barnavara could win a Cox Plate. Okay, now we'll move to the next one. Central Europe wins the Golden Rose. I had a massive rap on this horse as a 2-year-old. Obviously being by Frankel out of Tiwi, who, if you didn't know, was a champion 2-year-old filly. I think she won a Shively Park Stakes. Might have won another race, but she was a really elite 2-year-old. Didn't really train on at 3, which is a little bit alarming because obviously Central Europe is, now a 3-year-old. But being by Frankel, I just think this horse has so much room for development, and I feel like we were just scraping the surface with him as a 2-year-old. He came second on debut in the Skyline, I think it was, or it was one of those Group 2 Golden Slipper lead-up races. But I feel like we didn't really see the best of him. And now he's going to come back here as a 3-year-old by Frankel. That's another thing. He only raced over 1,200 metres as a 2-year-old, so we didn't really see him up in trip. And I think he could be a really good chance for the Golden Rose. I think, being owned by Coolmore, this elite bloodline that he's from, and obviously being trained by Chris Waller, I think he could be a real star this season. I think he could win a Golden Rose, then go to a Caulfield Guineas. Maybe go somewhere else afterwards, but I feel like he could be a real revelation, and we didn't see the best of him as a 2-year-old, I don't think. So, I think this horse has a lot of hype to live up to, but, I think, having a winter, to grow and develop a little bit, I think he'll be a real force this spring in these 7 furlong, a mile Group 1s for 3-year-olds. So he'll be very interesting going forward, this horse. And I'm pretty sure this is my last prediction for the video. Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's going to happen because, Watnan, who are obviously a Qatari-owned business, they obviously buy and sell a lot of racehorses. They've had a lot of winners at Royal Ascot, Goodwood. And they've got runners all over the place. They've got them in England, Ireland. I'm not sure Ireland, but they have them in England, France, America. But there has been talks of them, extending their operation to Australia, which kind of makes sense because I think one of their racing managers works for a stud in Australia, so there's a bit of a link there, and also it's kind of one of the territories that Watnan haven't really gotten a grasp on yet. So I could see this spring some horses coming out here that are owned by Watnan, most notably Map of Stars, who he won the Wolverton Stakes at Ascot, which is a win you're in for the Caulfield Cup. So I could see him coming out for that. And also Hopewell Rock too. Obviously, he ran at Ascot a few weeks ago, didn't really fire. And then he won a big handicap at Goodwood the other week, over 2,800 metres. And both the trainer, George Bowie, and the jockey on the day, Ryan Moore, both said the horse would get 2 miles. So I think this horse will run in the E-Ball handicap and then probably come out for... I don't know. He might go for the E-Ball or he might go straight to Melbourne. Because, they did seem to think that 2 miles would be his trip. So I could see that horse coming out here. But, and also another thing too, obviously, James McDonald, he rode a lot of Watnan horses at Royal Ascot the last 2 years. So if they brought a few out, they've got a jockey, assuming he doesn't have prior engagements with other horses. But, it could be really interesting to see this global superpower come out to Australia and, target some of these races. Like that's just good for the sport all the time, having, new international competition coming out. So, if you like this sort of content, please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. I posted a video the other day of doing a live reaction to the Sussex Stakes, which was actually a lot of fun to film. If you like that sort of thing, just subscribe, and I'll see you later.